You may already know a lot about project management. This video, however, presents principles that explain why and how experts need to manage their writing projects. For many, this approach to writing is a new one. I'll start with a brief explanation of the difference between projects and operations. Project work is a set of activities with a start and end date, aimed at producing a unique product, service, or result. A product is temporary in nature. The team members involved in a project often come together only for the duration of the project, may belong to different functional areas. For example, the Apollo 11 mission. As another example, developing a new software application or constructing a building would be considered project work. For these tasks, you have a clear goal, a working software application, a completed building. After the goal's met, the project's done. Operational work, on the other hand, includes ongoing, repetitive activities that produce the same product or provide a repeated service. For instance, in the same software company, the daily tasks of maintaining servers, troubleshooting customer issues, or updating software for security would be considered operational work. These tasks don't have a defined endpoint. They're necessary for the business to function, and they occur regularly, so they're more predictable. In some, projects are less predictable. Because of that, managing the work is challenging. Many of the messages an expert writes count as projects. They're temporary products with a specific end goal. They're going to produce unique messages, things that are written just once. In fact, if they weren't unique, there would probably be no need for a written message at all. The information could be captured with a form. Imagine this scenario. You're an information security system analyst whose boss asks you to complete an on-site examination to determine the level of security deficiency at the company's data center. A preliminary audit showed that the data center had not implemented all 5 recommendations from the previous audit. So you conduct your investigation and find one area of deficiency. Now you have to document your findings for your boss in an email. This scenario represents a fairly mundane type of writing project. As the expert, you have to advise someone else based on your knowledge. Let me present to you the principle that project managers call the triple constraints. The idea is that all projects are imperfect or constrained. Simple example will make this clear. Let's say you want to have a party to celebrate your graduation. The perfect party would require no limitations in scope. In other words, you could invite any number of guests, you could choose any location, etc. The perfect party would also require no time limitations. You have forever to get it planned, and it can take place on any date. Finally, the perfect party would require no cost limitations. You can spend any amount of money. Project managers are fond of saying that in reality, you can have any 2, but you must then deal with the remaining constraint. So you can have a party that takes place next week with any number of guests if you're unconstrained by money. Or you can have a cheaper party next week if you're unconstrained by location. But you're not going to have a party next week with unlimited numbers of guests that's also cheap. Let's return to the scenario I mentioned a few moments ago and think through what the triple constraints mean for you as an analyst who has to advise your boss about security at the data center. The speedy and cheap email will also be low quality. The less time you spend writing the email message, the faster you'll get it delivered to your boss. To reduce writing time, you can minimize the planning time before you draft and then spend 0 time revising it. I'd wager the quickest drafting technique would be dictation software during your on-site visit. If we follow a production model, think about the basic cost of your email. It's determined by your salary and the time it takes to produce the email. Of course, this ignores the critical costs associated with your reader, but in production, those costs are allocated under quality. So back to the example, you can limit costs by simply emailing the narrative text created with your dictation software. You can also cut costs by spending less on gathering information for the email. You could cut the time you're on site. Or your boss could have asked the person with a lower salary to conduct the examination. The consequence of delivering this speedy and cheap email is that your boss and anyone else who ever needs the details, that's why it's written up, has to spend a lot of time searching for the information they need about the company's data security issues. Think about this. An audio or even a written chronological list of your findings during the examination is not going to be the best order for presenting your findings to your reader. I mean, likely the fact that one area is still deficient is going to be buried in the middle of the message. As an expert, delivering speedy, cheap messages is going to harm your reputation. To continue, the high-quality, cheap email isn't going to be created quickly. It's more difficult to produce than the speedier, cheaper version because cost influences quality. You can enhance the quality of the narrative text created with dictation software by sending it to an editor, hopefully with a lower salary than yours, and having them test or revise it so that it's more likely to meet your company's and boss's needs. Then the editor can send it back to you so you can deliver it to your boss. The consequence, though, of delivering this email is that your readers are likely to get the information they need about the company's data security. However, your boss is going to have to wait for it. If she's working under a deadline, that could be a problem. As an expert, I don't think you can afford to produce only cheaper, high-quality documents if you want to be valued by your employers, customers, vendors, whoever. The high-quality and speedy email isn't cheap to create. Again, it's more difficult to produce than the speedier, cheaper document because speed influences quality. You can enhance the quality of the text that you create with dictation software by building your writing skills with some training, so you could avoid sacrificing quality when you write quickly. This will be more expensive in the short term because you've got to get training. But in the longer term, you'll be able to produce the required email more quickly than someone with less skill. The consequence of delivering this email is that your reader will understand the company's data security situation quickly. As an expert, these messages are the ones that enhance your reputation. I admit that it's difficult to tease apart the cost and speed in a writing project. I can't personally make myself produce a speedier, cheaper document, so don't ask. I prefer to produce the speedier, higher quality document, but I do sometimes recommend to others that they go for the cheaper, higher quality document. You should now understand why and how writing to communicate your expertise can be treated like any other project work. If you want to deliver high-quality messages, you'll be constrained by either time or cost. If you can't sacrifice either time or money, you're going to deliver low-quality messages. Period. The good news is that I will help you learn techniques and tools you can use to minimize some time issues when writing. Some of that information is coming up a little later in this lesson.